Over 80 cycles by our reckoning have passed since we first struck at the human race. With swift and merciless precision, we descended upon their world, armed with technology far beyond their own. Certain of our dominance, we unleashed our legions upon their home, leaving nothing but destruction and death in our wake. They had only just begun interplanetary travel. They had stepped upon their moon, but had only sent robotic probes to their nearest planet. They had yet to even reach 1/10 of light speed. We were in all ways technologically superior to them. And then, we lost. Be it upon their vast, turbulent oceans, be it in their teeming skies, or be it on their blood-soaked and verdant soil, we lost. They were more ferocious than we thought they would be. They negated our technology by utilizing their savagery to get close to us. They undid our stratagems by being more innovative, more cunning, more surprising than we could imagine you could be at war. And then, finally, they were able to wrestle our own ships from us, able to turn our glorious invasion into a retaliatory campaign of retribution. And they destroyed us. Even now, as we sit here in the broken remains of a hallowed hall of learning, where generations of our ancestors have come to learn and expand our species' knowledge, we can still see the damage done by the human occupation. Even now we have not even begun to repair the legacy of that war. I return now to my homeworld, after 75 years as a prisoner upon the human planet, and can see perhaps most starkly what you have no doubt normalized. We are a ruin of what we once were. And the final part of this truth is, we are also pathetically grateful to these humans. They spared us. That they showed us mercy. Yes, we have lost our fleets and are forbidden to return to the stars. Yes, what were once our own ships now orbit our world, watching for any of us to try and negate this order. Yes, we are powerless in the face of the human stern judgment, which floats above us with wary eyes, never ceasing in their observations, always ready to punish us if we transgress their edicts. But we have learned to be grateful, have we not? They showed us more mercy than we were going to show to them. We met them in battle and they bested us, and then showed a compassion towards us greater than we had planned for them. This is an axiom. This is the truth, which we all see before us. However, I have been summoned to this symposium not to recount our victories, but to reflect on the lessons I may have gleaned from my long captivity among the humans. And I believe I have learned much. Understand this, I am no scholar. I was the senior commander of the 3rd Legion, a warrior and tactician. My life was warfare, and I excelled at it. But after witnessing the defeat of my forces, the fall of my command, and enduring a trial for crimes against their species, I found myself imprisoned on the island where they confined all those they had captured. It was there, over many decades, that I studied the humans with a different eye, and in that time, I came to know them well. What follows then is my one insight, not learned, not backed by anything except anecdotal evidence, just what I observed. But if you will forgive me for introducing it to this forum, then I shall share it with you. At first I observed the humans from afar, either trying to kill them, or, after my capture, as a prisoner of war, which is an important classification for them. But then, as the decades passed, I just became simply a prisoner, and with that, a change. I began to learn their language from their guards, and after access to their literature and history, I began to learn about them as a species. Time passed. As the horrors of what we inflicted upon them faded, I became a subject of curiosity. The humans knew little about us. They wanted to discover more. They sought to ask me questions about us. I volunteered to answer them. After all, we had been defeated fully. I reasoned correctly that they would reveal just as much about them as I could about us. And I discovered why we lost. I discovered why the humans were always going to beat us. What follows is speculation, my own theory. But for what it's worth, I believe it comes down to this. The reason we lost to the humans is because the humans believe in ghosts. I can see the sneers already. Bear with me. Humans have had a very long evolutionary journey. Their species emerged over a period of 100,000 of their years, nearly 150,000 of ours. For much of this time they were primitive, it seems. Primal. But I have discovered that even in their earliest times, humans reconciled to death by gaining a belief in an aftermath to life. It sounds so inane, does it not? Not even one of our children would ever believe something so sentimental. Our race knows the truth: you exist only as long as you exist. You are created by your parents, you live, you die, and that is it. The end of you. Your body carries no significance. It is merely the flesh left over after your ending. We see this in the functionary way we dispose of our dead. Humans, however, they are different. Even today, when one of their number dies, they enact funerary rites. They seem to maintain an emotional attachment to those who have died. All emotional creatures know what grief is, but unlike our race, humans can experience grief on a much more base and visceral level. It can last, not for hours like us, but for years. It can cause an utter change in the personality of the human. This is an alien concept to us, I know. But consider this: at some point, many tens of thousands of years ago it seems, the humans started worrying about their dead. They began to bury them. They held funerary rites. As a species, they had not even discovered something as basic as the wheel, yet they buried their dead elaborately, and they left goods in the grave for the deceased. This showed they believed deeply that the dead human would have an existence beyond death. Maybe not one they could see, but they believed it. They left goods in the grave for the dead to carry onwards to whatever fate awaited them. Food offerings for subsistence. Tokens for mythological figures. And indeed, I have discovered that human civilization was filled with superstitious tales of what fate befell the dead. Every region seems to have their own lurid description of an afterlife, and so forth. But what struck me most was this: I, like you, would merely assume that the various primitive religious faiths would spark this belief in an afterlife or some sort, yes. But it appears to have been the other way around. At their most base level, humans came to believe in something beyond death long before they ever came up with the idea of any deity. At their most primitive, humans' belief in ghosts is much older than their belief in any kind of god. Thus, in terms of their evolutionary history, humans are believers in ghosts. It is their base theology. This is what we did not appreciate, and led to our defeat. Even with our technological advances. I can see how you question this. But consider. On the one hand, it appears to be a weakness. Such an abundance of grief leaves them weakened emotionally. We kill 100 humans, and you end up with 1,000 of them hit by the loss and the grief and the shock. Yet in coping with this grief, they gain an advantage. The humans sentimentalize their dead. They do not have simply 100 dead humans. They have lost their sons and daughters, their parents and children. You would think such a sentimentalization would make it easier for us to win. We would be wrong to think so. Dead humans live on for remaining humans. Their ghosts become real and visceral. Not physically, but emotionally and psychologically. We saw it from the earliest fighting. The humans sought to avenge their dead. Nonsensical, I know, as the dead seek nothing, but to these humans, the dead members of their species feel violated by the nature of their death. At a subconscious level, they believe they will not rest well without the injustice avenged. So at this base level, this inspires many humans with a cold, steely determination. They believe they are given a righteous cause. We soldiers learned this the hard way. It took a lot to make the humans surrender. Other humans would often invoke the names of their fallen and the places where they perished. One of our initial strikes, on a modest human settlement, one we considered insignificant, became a rallying cry of terrifying power for our enemies. To us, it was merely a random target, chosen to demonstrate our ability to obliterate their homes with mass drivers if we so desired. Of course, we had no long-term intention of such widespread destruction, as we aimed to exploit their planet's resources. Yet, all senior commanders agreed that erasing this settlement early on might break their will and force them to recognize the futility of resistance. But things did not unfold as we expected. "Remember Rambesa!" became a cry that struck fear into our hearts. The dead of that city transformed into sacred martyrs for the humans. By invoking their memory, our enemies seemed to tap into a wellspring of furious resolve. Whenever we heard that cry echoing across the battlefield, "Remember Rambesa!" we braced ourselves for the onslaught, knowing there would be no mercy, no quarter. The specter of that city's dead stalked the war, their memory igniting a savage determination in every conflict that followed. The human veneration of the dead gave them a powerful theodicy, and while we correctly estimated that human civilization was divided between myriad cultures and nations and languages, one of the reasons we underestimated their sense of unity was we underestimated the theodicy their belief in the dead would give them. When we killed human prisoners, their companions would say they will live on in us, which sounds insane, but the humans meant it. They saw their dead as sacrifices, even when the dead themselves had no agency as we had killed them. They called the dead martyrs. They called them heroes. They called them inspirations. Again, we killed them, but they granted their dead agency like this, and in some ways granted themselves agency also. What differences does that make in a battle space? It means an enemy who can be reinvigorated in the face of insurmountable odds. An enemy who does not fear risk. An enemy who is willing to sacrifice themselves to inspire others, who in turn sacrifice themselves. An enemy who is robust, an enemy who unites with their own kind not just out of the unity brought about by training, but in a deeply visceral sense. An enemy who does not fear death, sure in the knowledge of something beyond, even if that beyond state is just the memory of others. An enemy who believes those who died watch over them and judge their actions. Stalwart, stoic, passionate, unstoppable. Over the years I have come to realize this is why we lost, and why we can never hope to win. Before I left, as I was granted leeway to discover more about them, I witnessed in almost every human city or town I was allowed to visit, memorials. Sacred sites to the dead in the war. Tall monoliths, or plinths, or walls, covered in names. Just names. Like some shibboleth, the names allowed the dead to live on. In every town and city, the humans gaze upon the names of the dead. They leave floral tributes to the dead at these places. They touch the names. They leave flags and icons. They hold remembrance ceremonies. They treat the memorials as sacred places. Indeed, in some places they treat them with more holiness than they do actual holy places. These places show that in terms of sacredness, worship of the dead is greater than worship of any god. Do you doubt this? You are more learned than me and are free to disagree and debate my hypothesis at your leisure. For myself, I am old and my journey is nearly finished. I will soon pass. But I would remind you all of one final salient truth: the human belief in ghosts is why any of us still live. I have discovered that towards the end of the war, as they bombarded our cities and extracted a most bloody retribution upon us for our attack upon them, there erupted amidst their ranks a debate. The ghosts of long-dead members of their species were evoked. The examples they set. The words they used. The ghosts of merciful members battled the ghosts of vengeful spirits in the hearts and minds of the humans. And the merciful ones won. And we were spared. It does not matter if we find the idea of ghosts to be ridiculous. It does not matter that we cannot see, or hear, or measure or establish a ghost exists in any tangible way in the material universe. All that matters is that the humans carry ghosts with them in all they do and all they say. And because of that, we sit huddling under the sky that was once ours but has been taken from us. We gather under the cynical eyes of a species who we sought to eradicate, and who now sit in judgment above us. Because of that, we will forever be at the mercy of these humans. And their ghosts.